One of the cool things I've also kind of picked up on, you know, we actually haven't seen them in the actual trailer, but the Sith Troopers.
The Sith Troopers.
Yeah.
These guys are cool.
Yeah, these guys look sweet. I mean, I thought the First Order ones were sweet when they first came out. But these guys are like...
Yeah, the Sith Troopers, I got to admit, you know what? They actually have me really curious because... And this goes into the greater Palpatine discussion. Because, you know, it was like we were talking about, I think like a week or two ago, where we were speculating about what Palpatine's role was going to be, and... You know, it almost looked like he wasn't going to be taking over the First Order. It looked like he was going to be going up against the First Order, and he was resurrecting the Empire and all that. I think it was last week, actually, where our Return of the Empire episode.
Yeah.
Well, in that's where you have to wonder where these guys fit in, because they're not Imperial Stormtroopers. They're this new Sith Trooper thing, and you're kind of like, okay, are they a new... Is he taking like this whole Sith thing? Because you were saying, I think, that they're supposed to have like force powers or something.
Yeah. So, you know, here's the thing. I'm speculating that, you know, Palpatine not only because, you know, the Sith were once an army.
Yeah.
And so there's been rumors, and it makes sense to me that he's actually trying to create like the Sith army again. And I think these particular troopers are either have or they're learning how to use the Force. And I think that, you know, that's why they get the title Sith Trooper, because they're actually studying the ways of the Sith, not just protecting a Sith. Because if that were the case, you know, you would have like the
Royal Guards.
The Royal Guards, like, why weren't they Sith? You know what I'm saying? Like, they knew how to combat Jedi.
Yeah.
Or face Jedis in combat.
Yeah.
But they never had the title Sith to it. Sith was a title that had to be earned.
Well, that's what's so intriguing.
So that's why I think that...
Yeah, why are they called Sith Troopers? Now, it's true, but remember that the Sith were an actual race of people.
True.
And, you know, the Dark Lords of the Sith or whatever, they started out where they used the dark side and they were able to conquer them. And, you know, I think the Sith actually, like, almost worshipped them in a way, and then they just sort of adopted that. And then when people think of Sith, they think of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, because
this is a whole nother level.
Well, yeah, so like I think that they're more on the religion side as opposed to the race.
Right.
So I think they're following the whole Sith lore as far as the Sith religion and culture, so to speak.
Well, it's just weird because, you know, if you think about it, during the whole time of the original trilogy, because, you know, you can I would count the prequel trilogy, but, you know, Palpatine was still kind of in a dual role, and he still really was even in the original trilogy, because he was based as the governmental head of the Republic or of the Empire. And I think what we're seeing now is he can come out as just a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
Because remember, the average citizen didn't know he was a Sith Lord.
Right.
Now he can actually come out and be like, you know what? I'm this all-powerful Dark Lord of the Sith. Now here's all my Sith Troopers and my Sith this, almost like Batman, you know? It's like the Batmobile, the Bat Jet, Bat Cave, the Bat everything.
Well,
now he could do that with the Sith.
True. But you know what? I'm also thinking, too, that with this whole Sith thing, because you kind of have to wonder, like, all right, you know, why would he need a Sith army per se?
Right.
So, which leads me to believe that, and once again, I've heard rumors about this as well, that the temple where Luke was training, all those kids or all those students didn't die.
Oh, you think that the Jedi students or whatever are now...
I think that eventually they kind of like, all right.
Once but how would they have found Palpatine, though? You know?
I don't think they would. I don't think they found Palpatine. I think Palpatine knows that they're still out there.
Okay.
And I think that because he knows, like, okay, they have a potential, especially with Rey being out there, there's other kids, like Broom Kid. You know, those people are out there who can still rise up because, as Snoke said, you know, when darkness rises, light rises to meet it. So he has to have people in place who can actually combat. And I think that's the difference that he has now is that before he kind of had mass. He had volume of troopers, but now I don't think he has as much anymore.
Well, right, because he's not the leader.
He's not the leader anymore.
Yeah.
So now he has to just figure out, like, okay, well, if I can't meet you with sheer mass as far as volume of troopers and whatnot, I have to beat you with power.
Well, yeah,
who's
but
more powerful than him?
think about the trailer, though. I mean, there was a lot of I actually think there's almost more Star Destroyers now than there were, in the Empire. I mean, granted, I know that's not necessarily the case because they were everywhere in the galaxy, but you know what I mean, though. I mean, it's like it wasn't like he was lacking.
I mean, don't get me. He had a decent size. Yeah, don't get but I still think like if he's going to, but he has to fight a war on two fronts. He has to fight. If he's going to take over, he's got to take out the First Order or get them to join him, and then he still has to. Now the rebellion or the resistance, I should say, has now grown in the Rise of Skywalker.
Well, and that's going to be interesting,
planets have kind of aligned themselves.
Right, but when we last left the resistance, there was like 5 people left or something stupid. I mean, but
right.
But here's the thing that I find really interesting about the politics of the whole, I guess, the sequel trilogy in general, because the rebellion was actually almost trying to restore the Republic to the way that it was during the time of the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
So they were rebelling against the Empire.
Right.
And then, of course, they became the New Republic. What I find interesting is the Resistance essentially split off from the New Republic. They were kind of seen as radicals.
Mm-hmm.
So the New Republic really wasn't all about them. They weren't like the Republic's army or anything like that. I mean, they were operating outside. It was almost like they were the rebellion against their own republic in a way. So It's really interesting. It's going to be really interesting in the Rise of Skywalker to see, where the Republic is, because, we've been focusing on what happened with the Resistance and the New Order, but it's kind of like, well, yeah, you remember when they destroyed Hosnian Prime and kind of wiped out the whole center of government?
Mm-hmm.
Where's that now?
Well, I think that's where we're going to basically, and I think that's that whole meeting that we see in the trailer with Lando kind of sitting at the table. I think that's really like, okay, we have to declare like we're going to fight against this new order, the First Order basically. So we have to just kind of band together, because if we don't, what's going to be left?
Yeah.
So that's one. But then it's like, okay, I think once that, and I think that's where Lando comes into play. I think he's kind of leading the charge in that regard. Kind of like that rhyme there. That charge in that regard. Anyway, so I think that's his job.
He'll be here all night, folks.
So, but I think the other part is Leia is going to actually help establish the government piece, and I think that would make sense if she's not in the rest of the movie. You see what I'm saying? Because like she can pass it to Lando, like, Lando, I need you to lead these people because I know you have that leadership quality. We've done this before.
So basically you're saying that Lando would almost be like a military commander or something.
Exactly. He kind of rides with Poe, and they kind of take on everything.
And then she can work on maybe rebuilding the government. Well, we'll have to see. What about you guys? What do you think? Do you think that, well, actually, this kind of went beyond the scope of even our Sith Trooper thing. I was going to say, what do you guys? And then I realized, like, wait a minute, this isn't even what we were talking about.
Not initially.
But hey, I mean, what do you think about the whole role of the New Republic versus the Resistance versus the First Order versus the Sith?
Yeah, what do you think these whole Sith Troopers
Yeah, do you guys think that these Sith Troopers are essentially an extension of Palpatine's army? Do you think that, they're just protecting him? I mean, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below, and, we'll actually address your thoughts on a future show, I think.
Yep.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.